At the beginning of the course, I have on the Moodle site a quotation actually from Hamlet. We know what we are, but not what we may be. Our destiny is not laid out in some sort of plan, or if it is, that plan is obscure and unknown to us. Well, there are many respects in which Macbeth is regarded by various scholars as an existentialist play, or at least a play that has insights parallel to those or consonant with those of existentialism. Both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth make choices that create their characters. They choose their destinies, if you will, through their choices. What is destiny here? Is it some sort of plan that's laid out in advance? I think one of the things that leads to the madness of Lady Macbeth and the instability, let's say, mental instability of Macbeth himself, is the fact that if you strongly believe in destiny and then you see everything going haywire, you may begin to suspect that, in fact, what you previously called destiny is actually just self-fulfilling prophecies. When we say fate, perhaps that is merely bad faith. There's no fate. There are their consequences, the results of what we ourselves did. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth have choices, and they have temptations, and how they respond to those choices and temptations eventually destroys them as human beings. Okay, the dangers of bad faith. It's not just something that makes you, in the end, something that makes you feel guilty or perhaps ashamed or makes others disrespect you. Bad faith eventually undermines your own ability to deal with life. There is a tension, as we've talked about before, between our desire for there to be some sort of divine will or divine plan or fate or some kind of pattern that we can understand in order to interpret our lives. And between that and the experience of the futility, the unknowability, and the uncontrollability of so many parts of our lives. Okay, we want it to be this way, and we keep experiencing that it's this way. And we find something that seems to confirm what we wish it was. Just wait. Something will knock the legs out from under you. Okay, what to make of the prophecies of the witches? How to interpret the witches is an entirely different topic and a complicated one. King James, it's been noted, fervently did believe in witchcraft, not endorsing it, right? Not practicing it, but very much believed that witchcraft was real and it was a very present danger to him. Okay, so Shakespeare throws in these witches, and they're supposed to be quite literally what they appear to be. Then that would be something that would be very resonant with King James, his patron, and any number of other people who would be seeing his play or thinking about or discussing his plays. But is it something more subtle than that? Well, many people have argued that. Okay. Hail Macbeth, Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, Macbeth who would be king. Well, I'm Thane of Glamis, but I can't be Thane of Cawdor because that fellow is still alive. And besides, even if he died, I'm not in line to inherit his title. A Thane is something like a baron, a land baron, whatever, is given a certain amount of property, a certain amount of land by the king, and in return, generally has an obligation to provide military service for the king when the king needs it. Okay, so Macbeth has a title, Thane of Cawdor, Thane of Glamis, the witches say, well, you're also going to be Thane of Cawdor, and eventually you're going to be king. Okay. Well, Macbeth, interestingly, muses, and some scholars have made much over the fact that much of this musing is in the passive voice. If it is destined, if it's already laid out that I'm going to be king, I don't have to do anything. If it's destiny, it's just going to come to me. Thane of Glamis, yes, I'm that. Thane of Cawdor, well, if somehow that happens to come to me, then that was part of what fate had in store for me. And king, well, that's hard to imagine how that would ever take place. But, I don't need to actually do anything if that is what fate has decreed for me. Now, this whole idea that fate is just going to put your destiny in your lap without you actively participating, choosing, or creating that fate, well, that destiny, that state of affairs that was predicted, and that would be bad faith to the max, saying, well, it's just going to come to me. Freedom consists, for Lady Macbeth, in seizing your destiny, taking action. Your freedom lies in taking action. And so there's this conflict between Lady Macbeth and Macbeth himself at the beginning of this attitude of where does your destiny come from? The conflict between the absurdity, the tension between the desire to be something versus embracing your freedom. And we've talked about all that before. And here it is, quite vividly. So what is the meaning of life for Macbeth at the beginning of the play? It would seem to be valorous discharge of his duties. Now, he does promote his own self-interest by faithfully and valiantly discharging his duties as Thane. He owes military service to the king, and he's been especially heroic and effective. I don't just want to throw that in. You can be heroic without actually accomplishing anything, but he's heroic and effective. And okay, so you could say, look, I am fulfilling the meaning of life for me, what I have chosen, what I have committed myself to. I'm doing that, and very well too. But the meaning of life for Lady Macbeth seems to be acquisition of power by whatever means is available. Okay, the end of acquiring more power justifies whatever means that you may elect to use. So, you see how these two visions of where the meaning of life, how the meaning of life is achieved, where it comes from, what it will amount to. There's definitely a difference between how Macbeth sees that and how Lady Macbeth sees that at the beginning of the play, at least. Now here's a problem. After a few things take place that make Macbeth think, maybe all these things predicted by the witches, well, I'm Thane of Cawdor. I've been given that title by the king. The king's coming to stay at my castle. Gee, if I wanted to get rid of the king, it's going to be a perfect opportunity. After some murders and successful self-promotion, Macbeth may be embracing something like nihilism. I'll just do whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm embracing my success without reference to any frame of values. He's now hell-bent on destroying utterly anything that stands in his way or threatens his newfound meaning of life. I'd like to point out that Simone de Beauvoir and Jean-Paul Sartre as well have noted, especially what we are reading from The Ethics of Ambiguity, Simone de Beauvoir, has pointed out that it is self-contradictory to embrace this view of the human condition, this understanding of nothingness, in a way that endorses your freedom or confirms your freedom, but denies it to others. What is true for me is true for everyone else. A freedom to choose and to act upon our choices is where meaning comes from. Well, can't I simply endorse that for myself while denying it to others? That's bad faith. In fact, it may border on nihilism. So, is he at any point a full-on nihilist? I mean, Lady Macbeth almost seems to be like an existentialist. Okay? My actions, my choices are what is going to create the meaning of my life. I'll just go for it. I'll just go after what I want to be, rather than relying upon some sort of unfolding of meaning that comes from beyond me. Well, then comes that poem. It's one of the most famous parts of Macbeth. And this is, as a number of scholars have pointed out, you should not take this as being Shakespeare's overall view of human life, but rather of the position that Macbeth is in at this point of the play. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. Some Shakespearean actors say that what you should be hitting there is not the tomorrow, but the and, tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. It's like thus emphasizing the repetition, the pointless repetition. You are now Sisyphus rolling that damn rock up that hill perpetually. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. Creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. I don't hope for it to be anything other than this. This is what life is like. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools to dusty death. Fool is not simply a foolish person. Fool is, if you will, a clown as well. A court jester is a kind of fool. The people who have certain sort of slapstick or whatever roles in plays are called the fool. And there are many references to theater here. Life is essentially like a play. Okay? And anyone who's involved in plays knows that what we're doing in a play is not real life. At best, it is what Shakespeare said in Hamlet, holding up a mirror to nature. But it's not real life. All our yesterdays have lighted fools to dusty death. It doesn't matter if you're a king or a pope or whatever. You're on your way to dusty death. Martin Heidegger wrote in Being and Time about how time is like a horizon. Every step you take moves you closer to death. Death is always at the horizon. And everything you do brings you one step closer to your own death. And that gives it meaning. It's meaningful because you don't have forever. You're not omnipotent. You're not eternal. You're moving closer and closer to your death. Well, someone wrote, discussing Soren Kierkegaard, if you knew that you had only a certain amount of money that you would to spend in your lifetime, and you couldn't add a penny to that, but every day you're going to spend a little bit more, would you be extremely careful? Yeah, because it's all going to be gone one day. And the reason this was brought up in the discussion of Kierkegaard was that Soren Kierkegaard lived off of an inheritance. In his adult life, he lived off of an inheritance, and the day that the inheritance ran out, and the day that he actually withdrew the last of his inheritance from the bank and had therefore not a penny except what was in his pocket, he walked out into the street, fell over dead. I believe from a brain hemorrhage, if I recall correctly. But he died, right? It was all up and he died. Well, what a wonderful metaphor that is. I'm not gloating about Kierkegaard's death, so I don't mean it's wonderful in that way, but it's what a wonderful, appropriate metaphor that is for life and meaning. You only have so much life, and how you use it, it better be meaningful. Don't be a spendthrift with your life, because it will be gone. Okay, out, brief candle. Okay, if I am correct, and I'm not going to say I'm sure about this, but if I am correct, that is a reference to lighting in Elizabethan theater. Right, candles out, character's gone, plays over, whatever. Although I know that the Globe did use natural sunlight whenever possible for much of its lighting. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player, that again the theatrical imagery, a poor player that struts and frets an hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. Live big, live modestly. When the time is up, you are heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Okay? In other words, it doesn't mean anything. We can rage, we can bellow, we can exclaim, we can wax poetic. It doesn't mean anything. Full-on nihilism. Not, well, we by investing ourselves in this have created meaning. Nah. It's like a crazy person babbling, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Interesting, from a point of view of having looked at Camus, that Lady Macbeth commits suicide. Where does her madness come from? Guilt? That would be a very conventional sort of interpretation. But notice that as events unfold, more and more and more they unfold, she loses the illusion of control. Losing the illusion of control means loss of meaning. She's given up everything in order to advance this project that was supposed to give meaning to her life, and things are falling apart. So, we might say at this point of the play, Sisyphus is definitely not happy. Okay. Bad faith in Lady Macbeth's mentality may be the catalyst for Macbeth's loss of meaning, because his meaning to begin with was borrowed. He didn't start off with all this great ambition. He didn't start off with this attitude of anything goes morally. He was committed to a certain code of conduct, being a certain kind of person. He is seduced by Lady Macbeth's meaning, if you will. If he has embraced ambition by way of borrowing from Lady Macbeth, embraced ambition as the meaning of life, then his meaning of life is already doomed to failure. It's futile. Now, it is one thing as an absurdist to say, yes, it's all futile, and I throw myself headlong into it. Because how else is there to live? But what if you expect something? What if you expect some result? And that result seems forever out of reach. Toward the end of the play, the witches once again give reassurances. It's like, well, maybe I should listen to them because they've been spot on with some of their predictions, but everything now is in chaos and falling apart, and I'm certainly not happy. I'm finding my own sanity slipping away. Lady Macbeth is dead. Well, the reassurances given by the witches at the end seem like a cruel hoax. Oh, don't worry, Macbeth. No man of woman born can defeat you. And you won't be defeated until Birnam Wood shall come to Dunsinane. Now, taking that, this always reminds me of the Delphic Oracle. The Delphic Oracle would give responses that are ambiguous, and depending upon how sensible and how acute you were, you'd either say, wait a minute, if I take this at a superficial level, take this at surface level, I could end up destroying myself. But if I think about what it means, think about my own situation, my own character, there's something maybe more here that I should be looking at. Well, there's that kind of ambiguity in with witches say, oh, no man of woman born will slay you. And you won't be defeated until Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane. So a modern adaptation of Macbeth, which actually I thought was fairly successful. It was Macbeth and the other nobles are actually drug lords. And this is a gang war going on. Well, at the end, to knock down the gates of the walled enclosure where Macbeth is preparing to defend himself, boom, a truck comes through, and it's a big truck carrying all these tremendous logs. You may have seen them on the highway sometime, right? The tree's been cut down and stripped of its branches, and they have a bunch of them on a very big, powerful truck, tooling along. Well, the truck, boom, breaks down the gates, and you see on the door of the cab of the truck, Birnam Wood Lumber Company. So now that's a clever twist, okay? And the reason for mentioning that is, till Birnam Wood shall come to Dunsinane. Did the witches ever say it will never happen? No, they said something that it's not at all clear exactly how to take it. And if you take it at the most superficial level, the most surface level, probably you're setting yourself up. Okay? And you find yourself fighting man on man with an opponent who was delivered by Caesarean, which which would fit in the conventions of Shakespeare's time, the description not of woman born. Damn. So what does Macbeth do? At the end, he fights. He throws himself into the fight. He's lost all hope. He says, even though you're not of woman born, and even though Birnam Wood has come to Dunsinane, I still am not going to give up. I'm going to fight. Now, at this point, has he firmly and fully embraced these ambitions as being the meaning of his life? Okay, well, I live for my ambitions. I'm going to die for my ambitions. And maybe I'll win. Does he still think he can win? Has he simply embraced the absurdity of life? Or is he just throwing himself into the fight because he's totally out of options? Well, I don't know. What do you think? Enjoy the play.